welcome to Small Business Chat. Good morning, ladies. We have Karen in the house and we have a guest, Julie Brown. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you both?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Julie. We, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching the past couple of weeks, have been doing a series on demystifying PR for SMEs and business owners that might be thinking about embarking on using PR, understanding the full concept of it and really how to optimize it and get the results across your marketing. Karen has been with me for the past couple of weeks, haven't you? I hope you've been finding it sort of relevant or, you know, sort of like interesting from your perspective as somebody that might be considering it. But the reason why we wanted to talk today about media relations is that everyone associates PR with media relations and coverage, and it's a big part of what we do. Absolutely. There's so much more around it. It's not the only thing in terms of PR, but I think it's something like 92% of us will have done like media relations in a PR role. And of course, I've learned so much over the years, not from my PR colleagues, but listening to journalists and editors. So we thought, why not have the expert in the room here, Julie? So Julie, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and how you help small business owners today, please.
Sure. So I've been a journalist now for 18 years. I can't believe that. And a lot of that time I've been an editor-in-chief or a publisher of magazines. But I've done the whole lot really. You know, started as a writer, deputy editor, editor-in-chief, publisher. So I've done the whole range, and events editor as well. And I absolutely love it. You know, I've worked across an enormous amount of magazines and newspapers and websites, and I enjoy it so much. It's just such a fabulous job to be doing. It's not what I always did, obviously, because I haven't just been working for the last 18 years. I'm not that young. Before that, I actually worked in the National Health Service. As not a lot of people know that. Started life as a nurse actually, and a psychiatric nurse, then moved into management. And one of the roles that I did do, and I think it served me really well when I moved into journalism, was inspector of hospitals. So I was one of those lovely people that used to go around to hospitals and inspect them and tell them how good or bad they were, and then strip their staff from them if that's what they needed. And I guess I've always had a really curious mind, and that's why I sort of enjoyed doing that sort of work. I used to enjoy going into a place, looking around, talking to people, asking questions, snooping, digging in and out of places, and then making recommendations for change. And I guess I took that with me into journalism. I've got a quite curious mind, and that stands me in very good stead. I think people, you know, we know a lot of people now are pivoting with their business or pivoting with their lives even. And that's what happened to me. The pivoting moment for me was the death of my mum. She died too early and I was too young to lose her. And I just felt that I needed to change my life at that point. So I hadn't really thought about being a journalist, I have to say. But the day after my mum died, I was online just telling work that I wouldn't be in for obvious reasons. And I saw a job advertised for a writer on a specialist magazine. The specialism was something I was really passionate about. And I just looked at it and thought, that's what I want to do. So I applied that day. And 4 months later, I think it was, I was sat at an office thinking, what have I done? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how to work this computer. So, but yeah, I just sort of faked my way into it. And then within, you know, very short space of time, I was flying and absolutely loved it. So anybody can do anything if they put the mind to it, is the message there.
Oh, that's amazing. And what I love about your experience is you've also been like from a publisher, from a journalist, writer, even ghostwriter for books as well. So you've seen all different sides of it, but also you've helped businesses today get their stories in the media. And I always find this fascinating because nobody, when I was training to be in PR, like no one showed us what a flat plan was. Nobody showed us what the like how, you know, sort of like what the magazine layout would look like, from ads to editorial, features, promotions, classifieds, and it's only picking that up over years that you realize the constraints of media, what they need, how much they need. So how do you help small businesses? Like what sort of services do you offer them to help them with their PR?
Yeah, well, I do various things really. I teach people how to do their own media coverage, get their own PR sorted. And I can do that on a one-to-one basis, or I've got an online course if people would prefer to jump into that. I also run a done for you PR service. Now I only choose a very small amount of people to do that with, because I really like to get under the skin of the business that I'm working with or the person that I'm working with. And I'm like a dog with a bone. I take it quite personally if people don't get the press coverage they deserve. So I like to make sure that I only work with the amount of people that I can deal with, so I can give them a really good experience of the media. But the other side of that is I'm a general, I work on people's general visibility, because to get in the media, you have to be visible in other areas too, because the journalists will look for that. If you contact a journalist, the first thing they will do is look for you online, because they're nosy. They want to know who you are, what you're up to. And I'm not saying that you have to be everything and be everywhere and be running yourself ragged, but you have to have some presence online, or some presence somewhere to get the journalists interested. So I work with people on their general visibility as well, to make sure that when the spotlight turns to them, then they're ready for it. So I started myself so this part of my life I started about 4 and a bit years ago. And when I actually left my job as a journalist, although I say left, I'm still working as a journalist now. I do write for magazines, and I do edit still magazines when I need to. Usually get called in when there's an issue, or if they've got maternity leave cover needed or sickness cover. But when I actually left work, I thought I was going to leave all my journalism behind. I don't know why I thought that. And I was going to be a life coach. So I trained to be a life coach, and that's what I started doing. But then it was one very wise business coach that said to me one day, why are you not using your journalism and all your writing skills in the work that you do now? And I thought to myself, well, what an idiot. Why didn't I think about that to start with? So I just joined everything together. So my journalism, my writing experience, my coaching experience, my life coaching just got welded into one. And now I can help people in all sorts of different ways, particularly when it comes to visibility and people get nervous about being visible, nervous about contacting journalists, nervous about writing, they don't know what to say, they get imposter syndrome, they lack confidence, they don't want to be on camera, all that sort of stuff. Then I'm really well placed as an accredited life coach to get them through that as well. So I hope that I offer quite a well-rounded service really for people, getting them out there, getting them noticed and visible.
Actually, that's so important. Sorry, Karen, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, I think it is. There's a couple of things that you brought up there. I think the coaching part, brilliant, because I think a lot of people are scared of that visibility and being out there and knowing what to say, or there's some sort of block that stops them from doing it. I'm sure I do that sometimes, it's just, I'm too busy. I bet you've heard that a lot.
Absolutely,
I mean, yeah. I'm very busy, but, you can always make time for these things. And another thing that you mentioned around being visible online, and people often come to me and say, well, why do I need a website, or why do I need to be on social media? And that there is, you've just said it right there. They are going to want to check you out, just like if you go for a job interview. So you've got to be at least in quite a few places. I mean, I'm not on sort of things like Instagram and that, but I'm a bit on Facebook and LinkedIn. I guess it doesn't matter as long as you've got quite a few points. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to remember that so as a journalist, often you end up, so if you're working on a specialist magazine, then like motorbikes or cars, then there's every chance that you know quite a lot about that subject, and you'll be a bit of an expert anyway. But for more generic journalism, often as a journalist, you're writing about things you don't really have the massive knowledge in. So you're relying on experts to fill the gaps for you. So you can get so far using research and your own knowledge, but then you need an expert to give you a quote or be interviewed. And at that point, when we start looking for that person, we need to know that they do know what they're doing, because obviously, particularly for magazines, if you're going to be put in a magazine, the journalist who's put you in there, or the editor eventually, is saying to the world, whoever reads this magazine, that you are an expert in this topic. Mm-hmm. So the journalist has to be sure that they have chosen an expert, because they get loads of trouble if they don't. So that's why they're going to want to look at you online. They want to see what you're talking about, how people are interacting with you, whether you've got a good bio, all things that is saying to them, yeah, this is a good person to use, because they actually do know what they're doing. And if they get to your website or look for you on social media and they can't find you anywhere, you haven't got hope really, because there are many other experts that do what you're doing, that do have all that stuff in place, and they'll just go to one of those instead. As an editor, you won't put anybody in your magazine if you don't think that they're 100% authentic and 100% qualified and an expert in what they do. Now, I don't want people to be panicking now thinking, well, this sounds like it's really difficult, because it's not at all. It's actually quite easy to get in the media once you know how to do it. But you do have to have some presence to just instill some confidence in the journalists that you actually know what you're doing.
Definitely. Brilliant.
I love that. And also I'm going to touch on something you said about visibility, because I've also done that. Like you said, there was we were just chatting beforehand, and it's so true. Like, again, I come from a like agency brand, like that was where I started. So having a marketing director, that was their role, to stand up and represent the brand. But when it's a business owner, you do see that I really have noticed the shift. And even when you've got an amazing opportunity, getting them ready for a call is completely different to, say, someone like a marketing director. And so to have you guide them through that, I think is just so valuable, because, you know, naturally you want to give your best performance. So it's a bit of training. Like, it used to be media training, like understanding what you need to say and the points, but also when you are confident and you believe it, you come across even better as the expert. So I love the fact that you offer that side as well. And again, because you also touched upon the point of doing it in the right way. And I think there's some good PRs out there, but, you know, I think for both bad and good, I've also seen things done. I was also taught some horrible things that, you know, you're just like, well, you can't ask me to phone up every journalist every day to make sure that they got a press release. Like, that's just ridiculous. And also understanding that we're here to help, and we must have you know, all the information needed. So perhaps you can help us understand, from an editorial point of view, like what are the best media tips that you would give someone to pitch to you, or, you know, how you would tell them to pitch to journalists.
Okay, well, one of the most important things is to actually know the place that you're wanting to pitch to. So this is an issue that happens all the time. It's a real problem. You know, as an editor, you get pitched ideas that aren't even relevant for your magazine. So, for instance, you could be working on a gardening magazine, and somebody pitches in saying, I would love you to review the latest Ford Escort. You're like, well, I'm a gardening magazine, I'm not a car magazine. And we've been doing some research actually with journalists, and 97% of journalists said that the majority of pictures they're getting are not relative to what they do. And also, it's dead obvious that they haven't read the thing that they want to be in. So that's my first tip. You know, journalists get quite snotty about the fact that you might want to be in their magazine, but you actually haven't taken time to read it. So, Crystal, when you were talking earlier about the flat plan, what I would suggest to people is that if they want to be in a magazine, they get hold of it and read it, but also really look at it properly and assess how the magazine is put together. So, you know, do they do news? Do they do opinions? Do they do big features, or is it all short features? How much editorial is there in there? Just really get to understand the outlet that you want to be in before you actually contact the press. So that's definitely tip number one. Do your research, because journalists can cut straight through it. They know full well if you haven't read their magazine. So make sure you do that. And it's amazing now how many people are not reading stuff, but yet still expect to be in there. So definitely do that. And if you're going to pitch in to the media, so you've done your research, you know this is the right magazine for you, obviously make sure it's got the right audience for you, because if you're going to be in a magazine, whether that's online, in print, or anywhere really, it doesn't even have to be a magazine, it could be a podcast, it could be a blog site, you want their audience to match your audience, otherwise it's a slight waste of time really. So get to know a little bit about the audience of the place, make sure you read something that's you know, the magazine or the website, whatever it is that you're going for, make sure you know quite a bit about it. Then my pitching tips is very, you know, these are top line really, there's a lot more to it, but this is top
yeah
line.
And we'll talk about that in a minute.
You're sending an email, you don't ring them with your pictures, send an email, and the key to getting that email opened is the subject header. So you don't just want to say hello or would like to speak to you, or any other variation of words that you put in the subject header. What you need to put is that that it's a story idea that you've got. So actually label it story idea or feature idea, news idea, whatever it is that you're pitching in, and then put the title of whatever it is that you are going to talk about. Because the majority of journalists get, on average, about, it's very precise, 151 pictures per week for people saying, I want to be in your magazine. And that doesn't include press releases. This is just people saying, I've got a story idea for you. You get hundreds of press releases, that's separate. And basically, journalists will just go through their email every day and just scroll down, and most of the fingers over the delete button, and they just go delete, delete, delete. And the thing that stops them is that header. So if it's something that looks like it could be really juicy, they will stop and read it. If it doesn't, it just gets scrolled past or just deleted. So that's definitely really important. So even before we get into the body of the email, just make sure that header is as crystal clear and as powerful as you can make it. And I do quite a lot of work on headline writing with people to make sure that is what happens. Now, if you're lucky enough to get the email opened, what they then want to see is just a really nice, friendly, hello. And then you're straight into the nuts and bolts of the issue. The mistake that people make here is to think that the journalist wants to know about them, and that's not the case at all. Number one priority for an editor is, what can this person do for my readers? It is all about their readers. Just like when you're thinking about writing something for your own blog or for your social media, you're writing that for your audience. So think of the journalists, their readers is their audience. So everything that they write is for them. Everything they do is for them. Because if they don't do that, they don't sell magazines and they lose the job. So straight away, I've got an idea. This is what the idea is. This is why I think it's going to be fantastic for your audience. And you can actually say, I know you cover this particular topic and this is around that sort of topic. It's going to be great for your female audience because it's about lack of confidence. And I know your readers are suffering from that. Anything that's going to enable the editor to think, yeah, this is about my audience and it's something that's actually going to help or inspire my audience, just be useful for them in some way. You may want to tell them which section you think it will sit in if you do know that. So, this is good for your wellbeing section or your motoring section or your entertainment section, beauty section, whatever it is that you're covering. So you've piqued their interest now. They understand what it is that you want to write about, what it's going to do for their audience. You might want to say that you've been featured somewhere else before. So if you have, it doesn't matter if you haven't, but if you have, then say that so that they know that you've got some credibility already, you can write already. And then only right at the end do you talk about yourself, and you do that quite briefly. So then it's just who I am, what I do, and this is why I'm an expert in this topic, and it's quite short. So that's how you write a pitch. And the other things I would say is this actually has changed now. If you'd asked me this 2 years ago, I would have said, don't attach any assets, so no photographs, no research, no anything really. But now that's changed, and it's changed because journalists have become more and more stretched over the years. They're doing more and more work. So the more you can give them, so if you can include photographs, include any research, include any data, then that was going to be really useful. So basically you're delivering a package that's going to help them put it together quite quickly. Yes, they might need to come back to you to get the words, but then once they've got that, they can just get it together really quickly and get it off to press. So that is definitely something to do now than it was a couple of years ago.
That's actually quite interesting, because I hear a different, and I always get my speaking to my journalist friends, and also I love roundtables in particular industries. So does that vary on industry, do you think? Because I've heard the contrary to that. Oh, please don't send attachments. If we need images, we'll come to you. So have you noticed that change recently?
It's a recent change. It's in the latest round of research that's been run with the media, and the change is, I mean, everybody will be different. I'm just talking top line stuff here, but it is because magazines are now running with less staff, so they haven't got the time to keep going backwards and forwards saying, have you got images? The risk that people run when they send images is that it could get the email blocked, and that's why in the past we've said don't send images. But I would now send images, even if it was only a couple, and then you could say I've got more images if you want them. Now most business owners actually don't have any images anyway. If they're pitching for themselves, they don't have enough images to fill a whole feature if that's what the picture's about. So you then just say, I've got 1 or 2 images I could send you, or I don't have any images at all. And they might not even want them. They'll have a library of images that, business related images that they will use. So that has definitely changed. But the message I'm getting now from journalists is they would prefer pictures to be added. Or another good way to do it is not attach it to your email so that it doesn't block the email, but send them on a WeTransfer or some other, say send them on a Dropbox, for instance. So you might say in the email, I have got images and I'm going to give you a link to a Dropbox, so you're not cluttering up there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe do a link to a Google Drive or Dropbox. So it's a link within the thing. Okay.
So that's definitely what to do. Time-wise, this has changed a little bit as well. It used to be Tuesday, Wednesdays and Thursdays were the best time to send in a feature pitch. Now it's Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, but any day is okay, really. When we asked the journalists, they were willing to take pictures in any day, but I think for planning purposes, Monday is quite a good day because that's when the editor is doing quite a lot of planning. But also you have to remember lead times. So if it is a magazine that you want to be in, they are working usually 3 or 4 months in advance. So anything you pitch in now, even if they're really interested in it, it's probably not going to get used for quite a few months. So that's fine usually, unless it's something that is really time specific. So if you've got something that's really juicy for Christmas, then you need to be pitching that to the press probably July, August time. So that's just to remind you really that, you need to be thinking ahead, just like the journalist is. Most of the time, the stuff that we're talking about isn't time related, but if you are somebody who's time bound with the feature, then you just need to think about that.
And I also find that don't be put off if they haven't responded to you, because like you said, they're so busy, and I spend a lot of time with my clients trying to explain to them how busy journalists are, how you really need to respect their time, because they're juggling not even one column. It might be they're doing several things within that magazine, and also just making sure that you're giving them all the information, but the amount of times a client will say to me, oh, we're ready for Christmas now and it's November, and you're like, and exactly what you just said, just have the conversation beforehand, please. Like, think the year ahead, and I always think if you're going to plan at least 3 months beforehand, is when you really need to report your stuff ready, which is a good gauge. So it's lovely to hear that you say that as well, because I hear that from all my journalist friends as well.
It's a nightmare. I think business owners need to think of PR as a strategy, just like any other marketing strategy. So often we sit down at the beginning of the year and think about what's coming up for us in the year as a business owner, what launches perhaps you've got coming up. So you're thinking all the time about that and the marketing that you might need to put around that, and you just need to be adding PR into that mix and think, if I've got a launch there, so it might be really useful to have some PR, a couple of months before I do that launch. Particularly if you're a product-based business, or you're making handbags or beauty products, then you definitely need to be thinking ahead, because for that sort of business, then Christmas usually happens in July. You've got to have all your assets ready, your products ready in July. So yeah, just think of it as another strategy that you have to add in to your general marketing strategy, so you don't miss out on those opportunities. But that is interesting, because journalists, they might not get back. And I say this to my people all the time: you might not get in the press, they might not get back to you, you might not hear a thing, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't mean you were rubbish or your stuff is rubbish or you've got nothing to say. It just wasn't right for them at the time, whether it's a timing issue or the subject's already been covered or it wasn't unique enough. There's all sorts of reasons, and sadly most journalists are too busy to get back to everybody that they haven't featured. So what I say is definitely follow up. They will expect you to follow up. Don't think you've been a nuisance. And I would say leave it a week. And that seems to be, again, in the research that we've done, the thing that other journalists are saying. I'd follow up about a week later, just nice, friendly. I sent you an email last week. I just wondered if you saw it. Is it something you'd be interested in? And they'll either get back to you and say yes or no. If you don't hear anything, then pitch it somewhere else. Now, another thing journalists hate is you pitching it out to more than one place at a time. So if you're pitching it to me, don't pitch it to my rivals as well, because that will definitely get you on the naughty list. We have nicer naughty lists, and that you'll be on the naughty list for that. Because there's nothing worse than a journalist taking a feature, putting it in their magazine, using up prime, valuable real estate in their magazine, only to find that the the competitors are covering it as well. So it's fine to have different pictures out to lots of different magazines. That's absolutely fine, as long as the topics are different. And if you don't hear anything back from that particular magazine, then you can take that feature pitch and give it to someone else, but don't do it all at the same time. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, that's why when it comes to exclusive content, like knowing that you have to make sure that you speak to one person and give them a deadline to say, look, if you don't want it, let me know, because you know you've got to pitch it in elsewhere. The other thing that I was going to say was, you brought up a great point about if they don't get back to you. I've often found that it goes back to your point of doing it in the right way. They could have filed it because it's way ahead of time for them, or they think, oh, it's an interesting subject, but we're not no plans to cover it just yet. And I have found that my journalists will then forward me the email, or suddenly reply to the email like 2-3 months later and going, right, we'd like to cover this now. So, you know, again, as Julie says, don't feel like it was a bad idea. There's so many reasons that why it couldn't happen. The other question that I was going to ask you, actually, something that my journalist friends say is that by respecting the way that journalists and editors work, you build up a rapport with them, and they're more likely to perhaps read your email, like if you've done it in the right way. I've also found that my journalist friends have said, yeah, absolutely, if I know it's coming from you, then I'm more likely to open it. Not necessarily use it if it's not the right fit, but I'm more likely to get a response, or I'm more so understanding the right way of doing it, especially if you're pitching in regularly. It could be a beauty brand, you have like seasonal products. I think, you know, it's really good. I'd love to know if that ever swayed your decision when you're opening your emails.
Gosh, yes, absolutely. And this is really a good thing that you brought up, to be honest, because the thing that journalists want more than anything is for you to make their lives easy, because I can't tell you how busy they are. And it's just, I mean, when I first started in a magazine 18 years ago, we had the magazine and that was it. That's all we needed to work on, a magazine. And there was a team of 10 of us doing one magazine. Then, you know, if I think about what it was like when I left my corporate world to do this, you know, those same people looking after that magazine were also looking after a full-blown website, often having to write blogs, having podcasts to do. Some of them had radio shows as well, but they had a staff of 3, you know, so they've become so much busier. So what happens is, when I said we've got the nice list and the naughty list, I really mean that. If you pitch in an idea and the idea looks good, but then when the journalist tries to get back to you on it, you don't answer the phone, you don't deliver things on time, you're not helpful, then you'll just go on the naughty list and they won't use you again. Whereas if you're the opposite, if you go out of your way to be helpful, get things on time, send things they need, answer the phone, you'll definitely go on the nice list. And 2 things will happen there. If you pitch in another idea, yes, they'll open it, they'll think, oh, it's her again. I'm going to have a look at this because she was really useful last time and it was quite interesting. But also, when they're writing a feature and they need a particular expert to quote or to be interviewed or to do whatever they need to do, they'll go through their nice list and see whether there's anybody on there that fits the bill. So if they need a nutrition, for instance, they'll be thinking, now, did I speak to a nutrition recently? I'm sure I did. And they'll go down the nice list and they'll go, oh yeah, there she is, I'm going to use her. So they'll keep going back to the same people if you do it in the right way. If you don't, then you won't get used again. So it's definitely worth, you know, doing it in the right way, finding out a bit more, growing relationships with the journalists, and you'll be in their good books for a long time. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing that. You'll become their expert, their go-to expert, as well as your clients' go-to expert. So it'll be good all the way around. Your clients want to, you know, potential clients will want to come to you because you've got the credibility of being in the media, but the journalists will also see you as an expert and credible and want to come to you more often for some of the things that they need.
And that's all around, like you say, being visible and keeping top of mind, isn't it? So if you are building that relationship and you're nurturing it, you are going to be at the top of their mind and on their good list as well. So.
Yeah, and I think people, you know, sometimes think, oh, this is a lot of work, but it doesn't have to be a lot of work, but the rewards that you get back are immense. So, you know, I would suggest to the listeners that are really thinking about this seriously now, wanting to get in the media, you know, find where the journalists are hanging out, and it quite often is Twitter, and speak to them on there. You know, if they're, because they'll all be posting about what they're putting in their magazine, and they'll post when their new issues are out, they'll post when something's happened on their blog or they're running an event. Don't get chatting to them, just reply saying, oh yeah, I read that and I thought it was really useful. It doesn't have to be anything much, but the more you can engage with them, they will remember that you've been doing that. So when you pitch into them, you'll be top of mind. You'll be like, oh yeah, I remember her, she's been talking to me on Twitter, I'm going to have a look, see what she's got to offer. So just think about it like when you go networking. You know, when you want to work in collaboration with other business owners, you've got to get to know them. You've got to be, you know, supporting them a little bit, or engaging with their social media. And it's exactly the same with the journalists. If you come out of the blue and want them to be really helpful back. That's trickier than if you've already developed a relationship with them.
Definitely.
Love that, actually. Definitely about the follow-up, because what I always say about PR is about relationships and reputation. And like you just said, it's the relationship, like, and I totally agree with you. I'm trying to get more of clients to understand it's a long-term game. Like, it's the relationships you're building up with those journalists. So you're networking with them online as well, whether or not you want them to feature you or not, but still develop that as part of your networking, because they'll always have, like you say, they'll need you for that go-to. This is absolutely brilliant, and you have got a masterclass coming up, which I think is going to be super useful. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it starts on Monday, so it's 5 days. So it's a call every day at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to be covering lots of things about general visibility, but most of it is going to be around media coverage. So we're going to go right through from doing a general visibility audit to then helping people build their media blueprint, find opportunities, learn how to deal with the press, learn how to write a pitch, look at their own business to see whether they are actually PR ready. So we're going to do an audit with people to see whether their business is PR ready. And then what I've been doing actually is been interviewing people who have signed up for the masterclass, and I've pulled together a long list of other things that people want to know about. So I'm trying to make this as focused as I can on what people are telling me they need. So I'm going to cover everything you need to get going with your media adventure. And although it's five 1 hour sessions, I do want it to be engaging. So it's it's been run from a Facebook group. I want people to come along and ask their questions. But I'll also be doing some bonus sessions based on the feedback that I'm getting. So if I'm missing something, then I will pick it up and do an extra bonus class on that. So it's going to be really full on. Hopefully it's going to be really enjoyable as well.
Oh, it sounds brilliant.
So I don't know if when this goes out, you can put the link onto that, but I can certainly give you the link if you want to use it, Crystal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's starting this coming Monday, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock every evening, Monday through to Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And any bonuses that I do will be published in the Facebook group, so people can hop on to those as well if they want to.
Oh, it sounds brilliant, because I know, as I said to you, I just got so much on at the moment, but I really want to do this.
Yeah, obviously people have got to be in the group to join in, but then the recordings, because they're live recordings, obviously will stay in the group for a week and a bit afterwards, so people can catch up if they need to, and then they'll come down. But obviously if you come on live, then you can ask your particular questions as we're on. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. And another thing I wanted to mention as well, for listeners out there, is Julie does a great weekly newsletter with all the media opportunities, and that's fantastic. So I mean, that's, you know, for people who want to get in there, you list out all the different opportunities there, and it's just like, oh my goodness, you know, that would take someone so long to get that information. So
yeah, that goes out every Thursday, and I just look around, and because I'm obviously got what's your Crystal's the same, I'm on a fair few websites that I pay to be on, so I can see opportunities that other people wouldn't be able to see, and I share some of those on my newsletter in the hope that other people will get involved and get themselves some media coverage.
No, they're really useful, actually. I sign up to, like you said, a couple. I sign up to yours. It's really good. And yeah, journalists need information straight away, so they'll usually put it on Twitter. Well, no one's got time to go onto Twitter like all the time just to search for these. So to have it in one email is really helpful. So yeah, absolutely great value there, and an opportunity to jump on and get your coverage and get visible for your business. Can I also ask you, final question, because you work with so many businesses, and I think it's so important for, I think again, you see it from both sides. So it's not just about the exposure. I'd love to hear some of the results that you get for your fabulous clients, because you talk about it on LinkedIn. You should follow Julie on LinkedIn and also on Facebook and on Instagram. But I think it's so important to see that there's so much more than just the coverage that business owners achieve. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, media coverage is tip of the iceberg, really, because it leads to so many more opportunities. The reason to do media coverage more than anything is to increase your credibility. You know, if you've been in the media, what's happening there is a journalist or an editor is saying this person is good enough to be in my magazine. So the credibility there is amazing. So what happens with that, of course, if you use it properly, because this is the other thing that I find is people get media coverage and then don't use it. But if you actually use it the way I would teach you to use it, then it just leads to so many things. Obviously, more clients is number one on everybody's list. That's what people often are wanting. And it does definitely help with that, because if you splash media coverage everywhere, it's saying to everybody, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about. So other people can be confident that you're an expert that they want to work with. And I've certainly done that when I've been wanting to work with business owners. I guess because of my background, I look for ones that have had some media coverage, and I would choose them over somebody who hasn't. If I had two people who were very similar, but one had some media coverage and the other hadn't, then I'd go with the one that had. So just for being a magnet to clients, it's great. But it leads to so many other opportunities. You'll get speaking gigs, you'll get invited on summits. You know, I did an interview last night with the Los Angeles Tribune, which I would never have had the opportunity to do that if I wasn't, you know, having media coverage myself, because I'm a business owner now myself, and I've got to get media coverage for my business. So there are so many things it can lead to. I mean, one of my if you think about return of investment just from a purely money point of view, a client of mine got just one page in a magazine, and she got £12,000 worth of clients on the back of that. So if you're looking at purely money, which I know some people will, then it can be fabulous. But more than that, it's what else it leads on to. You know, a lot of my clients are now inundated with requests to be on podcasts and speaking gigs and big summits and big speaking gigs and newspaper, you know, television. So yeah, it just can lead to so many more opportunities. So think wider rather than narrow.
I'm so glad you said that. Because we can say this to clients, but you know what? You're listening to somebody that works on both sides of the fence. And I'm so pleased that you said that. So you've been brilliant. Thank you so much, Julie.
Yeah, that's really good advice and tips there.
Yeah, absolutely. As Julie says, the details are always in the show notes, along with Julie's contact details. But if you have any questions, please pop them on underneath the chats, where we're on Facebook on both mine and Karen's page, and also on YouTube. Let us know, and we'll make sure we tag Julie in if you've got a question. But yes, absolutely follow and sign up for the masterclass. Thanks so much. We will see you next week, but it's been a great episode. So thanks again, Julie Brown.
Welcome.
Thank you. Contribution. Take care, guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Sweet. Bye-bye.